Right, so today we're going to implement FastAPI JWT authentication, and we're going to do it the proper way. We're going to use separation of concerns, and we're going to use all the best practices so that you have a stable way of doing authentication. I saw many videos online on YouTube and resources creating this JWT authentication, but all of them are either deprecated or they are not explained very well. So today we're going to do a really good thing. It's going to be scalable, it's going to work, and you're going to have JWT auth. This code here is a template that I made with FastAPI SQL Alchemy Alembic. You can download it. I'll put the link in the description. I also made a video about this, but I'm going to work from this and you can just follow along. And you can also see the code in the GitHub in the description. So that's one thing that we covered, and we can just get right into this. So open your terminal, and we have to install two requirements, and that's pyjwt and Bcrypt. We're not going to use passlib because passlib doesn't play well with Bcrypt for some reason for the later versions. So we're going to install Bcrypt too, and it's going to be the latest version. So I think it's Bcrypt 4.3 point something, and pyjwt is 2 point something. So it's the latest version. After you install this, we can actually go and write our code. So you can see here that we have this core users directories. We're going to add another directory called auth, and this is where we will place all our authentication code in this auth directory. And now inside of this, we need a way to model the token. So we're going to create a models directory, and inside the auth and the models directory, we're going to add an init.py file, and this file is just used so that we can import stuff from these directories. So we're going to say init.py. We create these two files. Now, inside our models, we're going to need a token.py file. And this token.py file is just essentially a model for our token. So we're going to import from Pydantic our base model, and our token is going to contain the access token and the token type. This token data is essentially what we're going to store inside our JWT. And I like storing the email. You can store ID, you can store username, whatever you want. Essentially, you have to store the important data so that you can identify your user. The next thing after this is we're going to write the actual service, and we're going to add things that are required. So we're going to create another directory, and we're going to call it services. And inside this directory, we're going to do the same thing, write the init.py file, and we're going to write the auth service.py file. And this auth service.py file is going to contain the functions that we need to do authentication. So for example, if I open the user directory inside the services, we have the user service, and we have all the required functions so we can do basic CRUD operations. So inside our auth service here, we're going to specify our secret key, and we're going to say secret key is equal to settings.jwt secret key, and we're going to specify the algorithm. Now, most videos say they put secret key in quotes here, and then they tell you, well, actually, you can just use it from load it from config. And I don't like seeing that because they have to show you the best practices. So in this template, I've set up this settings. It's imported from the config loader, and this is used because this prevents the circular import, and you'll be familiar if you're doing FastAPI or Flask. And this settings here is imported from our core config settings, and here you can have typed env files. So we need the JWT secret key, and we can just say environment. See, environment is local staging of production. Below the environment, we can say secret key, and we can specify that it's a string. So any new env variable that you need in the future, it's gonna be added here, so you can have it typed, so that you know, for example, JWT secret key is a string. You might have some enums like this, and so on. So once you add this in your config.py file, you can close it off, and you can see that you have settings.jwt secret key. And you also have autocomplete here, so you can say JWT secret key, and it's loading. It's a bit slow because I'm using VSL on Windows, and PyCharm JetBrains software does like to play well with this. So the next thing that we want to do is add the OAuth2 scheme, and this is just an import. It should be an import once this recognizes it. If it doesn't, I'll just import it manually. But we need this to tell our API where the authentication is, and it's going to be on API/auth/token. You have to add this. So for example, if you want to get the token from login endpoint, you're going to say login here. I'm going to leave token. I'm using a part of FastAPI's documentation for JWT, but I actually made it, adapted it to the new changes. So the first thing that we're going to write here is the authenticate user function. And this function takes the email, the string, and it gets the database. This is how you do dependency injection in FastAPI. We're going to import this getDB, and if you clone the project, you'll have it. You can see the repository to see how this works. And we're also going to have to import the depends and session. And now since PyCharm is not playing well with me, I'll have to import this manually. I'm going to import the SQL Alchemy ORM session here. And depends is also going to be imported from FastAPI. I'm going to import the entire line here because PyCharm decided not to play well today. So we're going to say user, and we have to get our actual user. So we're going to say get user by email, and we're going to pass the database and pass the email. Now this function does not exist right now, and we will implement it a bit later. And we're also going to add this logic here. So if the user is not found by the email, we're going to return false. And if the password is not correct, we're going to return false. But if everything is all right, we're going to return true. So let's write these two functions. The get user by email function, it should be written in user service so that we have a clear separation of concerns. We don't want to write it here. So in our user service, we can just add this function, and it's a two-liner called get user by email. What this does, it just gets the user, finds its email, enters the first one if it exists. So once we added this, we should be able to import it. Yes, import from user services, user service, and we're gonna import the function. And the next thing that we have to do here is implement this verify passwords. And verify passwords is a utility function, and that's why in our auth directory here, we're gonna create a new directory, and we're gonna say auth utils.py. Did I say directory or file? Oh yeah, we're gonna have to say utils and then auth utils.py. So now, inside of this, we have to implement a function called verify password. And this verify password is a pretty simple function, and we're going to use native Bcrypt. So we're not going to use passlib or anything else. We're going to use Bcrypt. So from Bcrypt, we have to import this check pw, and that's it. What this does, it takes the password, takes the hash password, and how this works is you don't actually store the passwords in plain text in your database. You have to actually hash them, and this takes the password and compares it with the hash password. That's the entire function. It's pretty simple. And the next thing that we want to add here that we'll need later on is get password hash. And what this does, it just generates the password hash, and that's it from the actual password that's passed. So once we added these two functions, we're gonna write the init.py here. We added these two functions. We can continue in our auth service here. So we're just gonna hover over this verify password and import it. Now, this function is done. The next thing that we need to do is write a create access token function. And this function is, as it says, creates an access token. We have to import this delta time here, and this time delta time expires delta. This argument here is going to be used to specify when the token expires if we add this argument. So we're going to just implement this. And I'm going to copy the code because I don't want you to waste your time for you waiting. And we're going to import this JWT reference here. Why is it not giving me, I don't know why it's not giving me the solution to import, but we're just going to import it manually because we're fucking chats. Okay, so this function here creates an access token. We get the data, we copy the data so we can actually, it's a mutable object we can access. This expires delta. If it's not specified, if it is specified, we'll add the time. So for example, I'll specify that my token expires in 24 hours in 1 day. But if I did not specify this, I'm going to say the token is going to expire in 15 minutes. You can also just say that it's required, but let's just follow the documentation. Now, we're going to update the data that's passed for our token, and we're going to set the expiration to the time delta that's added. So 15 minutes or 1 day or 5 months. Just don't set 5 months to the access token. Set something lower. So the JWT to encode is, so this is the actual JWT, this variable here. And we say JWT encode, we have the data, we get the secret key that we loaded from our env variables, and we set the algorithm, which is the HS256. And we return the encoded JWT. And this is how we create the actual JWT. Now, there's a function here that's called get current user, and I'm gonna again paste it here, and we're gonna walk through this. So this function here, let me just import the annotated, import this name. Oh, it actually gave me the import. Nice. Token data, it's gonna be from models, and invalid token error, it's gonna be from JWT exceptions. Okay, so we're gonna import this. Okay, now what this function does, it gets the current user based on our token. So this is the token here. We're gonna load the token in, and we're gonna get the current user. We need the token to actually see what the user email is, and then we're gonna get the database and return the user. So what happens is we get the payload from our JWT, we get the email from the JWT. So we get this sub here, and I'll explain all of this, but in this sub, we store our email. So we get the email and we check, well, if there's no email, then the token is not valid. We can't actually see who this person is. But if the email exists, we can say token data, and then based on this token data, we can get the user. So this token data contains an email, right? We're gonna call a function that's gonna access our database, and it's gonna say token data that email. So if, for example, you logged in with 123@example.com, it's gonna be here, the value here passed is gonna be 123@example.com. And the database is gonna check if the user exists by that email, and if the user does not exist, we're gonna raise a credentials exception, but if the user does exist, then we're gonna return the user. It's pretty simple once you read it line by line. So don't be afraid of functions like this. And the final thing that we need is the get current active user, which essentially is just an abstraction. It gets the current active user. It depends on the current user, and this is a nice way to write this in FastAPI. It depends on this function, and this function will automatically run, so you don't have to worry about any logic here. So now we are done with the auth service. We're done with the utilities. We're done with the user service. I think so. We have to add this function only. And we have to write the routes. We actually have to implement the auth router, and we want to add the authentication routes. So we're going to say routes. And inside of this directory, again, we say init.py. We load this in, and then we create another file that's called auth.router.py. And the convention is the same for everything. For example, routes, user router, auth router. We have to follow this convention if we want to have clean code. Now, our auth router is going to be an API router from FastAPI. And again, PyCharm is not working with me, so I'll have to import all of this. Now that we have that imported, we're going to write our endpoints. So we're going to say at auth router, and this is decorator, we're going to make a post request, and we're going to send it to /token. And this /token should be the same as this here. So if we want to have our route to be login, we should also change it to login here. Okay, you have to follow that, or else the authentication will not work. So we say token here, and then we're gonna write a simple function. What this function does is gets the form data, gets the session, and then we will authenticate our user if everything is all right. So let me add the imports here quickly. Typings, SQL Alchemy, we need the ORM, and then we need all of this, okay? So you mostly likely have autocomplete working. VSL is just not working today. So what we're gonna get is we're gonna get the user, and we're gonna authenticate the user. And you can see this authenticate user is coming from our auth service function. And we will get our user if the user exists here. And how to handle this, it's really simple. We're just gonna check if the user does not exist. So if the user does not exist, we're gonna raise an exception. We're gonna say you're unauthorized and you have something incorrect, username or password. You can change this to email. And you can also change this to email. But that's up to you to change. I don't want to go out of scope and customize this heavily. So the next thing that we want to do is put the access token expires, and this is the time delta that we pass. So I set it to minutes 1440, that's 24 hours, and we get the access token. We actually create the access token. And you can see here this sub, and this sub is gonna hold the user.email. So this sub is gonna contain the user email. So when we try to decode our token from the get current user, you can see that we get this sub property, and this sub property contains the email. And if everything is all right, which it should be, you're gonna return the token with the access token and the token type, which is gonna be a bearer. Now that we implemented the auth router, we can actually close all of these files, and you should be able to go back to main.py. So if I go back to main.py, we have the users router here, and we're just gonna add the auth router that we implemented. So we're gonna say include router, and we're gonna say auth router, and we're gonna add the prefix that's API /API. Okay, and this auth router should be imported. So let's see if this works. Yes, it works. Auth router routes, auth router, and let's add it here so it's separated nicely. And everything should work. So what we can do here is I can open this. Let's try FastAPI dev. Okay, it's not running. Why? Because our env is not set up. So let's close this off. We have the env.local. So what we're gonna do is say Command C, Command W, and we're gonna create an env. Say okay, everything is copied. So let's add our username. Let's say admin, password, admin. Do not put this in production, please. Server is 5432. We're gonna check our, I think we should use 35432, your DB, because I don't want the default Postgres port. We're gonna check our Docker Compose, Postgres, yes. We're gonna specify the port 35432. And one more thing that we're forgetting is the JWT secret key. I think that's how we spelled it. If we're not sure, we can go to core, config, and yes, JWT secret key. So we're gonna say JWT secret key, and you should generate a good key here. Do not do this. You can follow FastAPI documentation. It will give you a bash command. It's something OpenSSL to generate the actual good key that's not some garbage here, because this is not entropic enough. Never mind. Once you set all of this, we're gonna run our containers. We're gonna say Docker Compose up, build, detach, and it's gonna recreate our container. And if we open our Docker, we should have everything set up. It's running on this port. It has these credentials. So let's run FastAPI dev, and everything is starting. So I'm gonna open my browser here, and let's see if I'll have to recreate the database. Let's just try it out. So I'm gonna say turn on server. Yes, I have to recreate the database because the previous database, yes, because the previous database that was created with different credentials. So we can solve that pretty easily. We can go here and we can say Docker Compose down, and we can say V to stop the volumes, to delete everything, and now we can Docker Compose up, build, detach to recreate everything. Okay. Now, again, I'm gonna say FastAPI dev, and everything should be working. So if I go back to my browser here, we reload, we get the user list, we execute this. For some reason, we're getting, the user table does not exist. Okay, that's completely normal. We have to run migrations, and we're gonna say Alembic upgrade head. Okay. The migrations have ran. That's creating the user. Oh, and there's one more thing that we have to add. We have to actually hash the password for our users. So you can see here in the create user function, we just store the password as is. We actually have to get this password and then hash it. So we're going to say get password hash, and we're going to add this password. And of course, we have to import this. And this is imported from auth utils. So this is auth, and then utilities, and then auth utils. And this is the get password hash. So we're gonna call this get password hash to our password and save it to the database. So now if we run this, and it should reload, yes, it did reload, we can open up our FastAPI documentation. We can create a user. So we're gonna say user, at example, and we're gonna say admin123. So once we create this, we created the user, and let's authorize. So we're going to say user at example.com, and we'll say admin123. And once we click this, we have authorized. And now, if I go to my /me here endpoint, and I execute it, I get the current user. You can see I execute, I get the current user. But if I reload the page and I not logged in right now, as you can see, and I try to run this endpoint to get my current user that's logged in, you can see it says not authenticated. And that's how easy it is to add authentication. This is a clear, this has great separation of concerns, and you can actually work with this. It's not going to give out on you with deprecated libraries, and it's very easy to add. This is the simplest thing that you can add to your project. So if you want to authenticate a route, you just add this dependency here, current user. It's going to be type of user, and it depends on this function, get current user from our auth service. This function does all the heavy lifting. That's it. I'm going to put the link in the description. If you need anything else, please just comment. I'll be happy to answer all of the comments that you have, all the questions. And soon I'll make a video about React authentication with JWT, but that's secured. We want a secure JWT and a cookie, so I'm going to work on that soon. And until then, bye.